This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here, and as you know, 3 new M1 Macs just came out, and after publishing a video on each and every one of them, I think a lot of you are still confused about which ones you should purchase, and honestly, who can blame you? Can you even remember a time where Apple released a new desktop Mac, a fanless MacBook, and a Pro MacBook, all with the same exact processor? Well, if you remember a time where that happened before this, you might be living in an alternate universe because that has never happened before. So it's understandable that many of you are deciding between a MacBook Air, a MacBook Pro, and some of you are even wondering if you should give up portability and get a desktop Mac Mini instead. Well, I'm going to do my best to try and answer that question in today's video on what Mac is right for you and the pros and cons of each model. So first of all, I want to start with the Mac that I think the vast majority of people watching this video should probably get. That would be the MacBook Air. The MacBook Air is the most well-rounded Mac out of all the new M1 Macs. First of all, it's a laptop, so even though it isn't as price-friendly as the Mac Mini, it also doesn't require any additional accessories to get working right out of the box. It has a display, it has a keyboard, it has a trackpad. So all you really need is the MacBook Air. It's also much price-friendlier than the MacBook Pro. The Air starts at $1,000 or $900 if you're a student, while the Pro starts at $1,300. Now, even if a $300 price increase isn't a deal breaker for you, also consider that you can spend that $300 budget on other upgrades that might be more useful to you. For example, you could get a MacBook Air with 512 gigabytes of storage for $1,249 and get a laptop with double the storage and still have $50 left over. You could also choose to upgrade the memory from 8 gigabytes to 16 gigabytes, giving you a machine that will be better at having lots of apps open at once, or even for running some of those more demanding applications like longer projects in Final Cut Pro 10. And yes, you didn't mishear me. One of the great things about this MacBook Air is that it is actually powerful enough to run apps you traditionally shouldn't be able to run on an Ultrabook. So yes, load up Final Cut Pro 10, open up Logic Pro 10, and even do some light gaming on macOS compatible games. The MacBook Air can actually handle all of these applications. In fact, and hear me out, I know not everyone watching this video is a video editor, but the MacBook Air was able to export a 10-minute 4K file faster than my maxed out 2019 iMac.
No way. No. No way. The MacBook Air beat the iMac? The fanless MacBook Air beat my iMac.
Yeah, I don't believe it either sometimes. The Air outperformed that $3,800 iMac behind me, and that's not even a conversation we should be having. So if you're thinking like in previous years, where the MacBook Air was really only a laptop that was suited for more basic tasks, well, that's just not the case anymore. You have to rethink this product, and the MacBook Air really can do it all. And it can do all of this without an active cooling system, or to put it in terms the average consumer can understand, it does this all without a spinning fan. This means that the MacBook Air is dead quiet. It doesn't make any noise. Over the years where I've reviewed Mac laptops, one of the top complaints in my comments were that the MacBooks just got way too noisy. The MacBook Air webcam is a bit mixed. I think it's an improvement over the last version, even though the hardware hasn't changed, but it still has a 720p webcam that will look bad in low light and when blown up on the big screen. However, for video chats and conferencing, especially in a smaller window that doesn't take up the entire display, I think it's more than passable enough. In fact, we recently had Luke Miani on the GadgetCast podcast, and he did all of that on the MacBook's webcam. So if that was passable enough for us and we didn't even really notice it, I think that's a pretty good indication that it's going to be fine for most people. It's also a little lighter than the MacBook Pro, shaving 0.2 pounds, and is thinner at its thinnest point. It also has a wedge-shaped design that also makes it a little bit easier to scoop up one-handed. So here's a laptop that no matter what you run on it, it will literally be impossible to hear it because it has no fan. So it really does make a laptop that is great for people who are mobile. students, teachers, people who travel, people who visit coffee shops with their laptop, I think the MacBook Air is probably the one that most people are going to want to start with. But listen, you can say the same things about Apple's new MacBook Pro. Unlike the MacBook Air, the MacBook Pro has all of these features, and while the two laptops are a lot alike, there are some key differences you need to know. But before we talk about those key differences, I want to tell you about our sponsor for this video, Squarespace. Squarespace is the best place to go if you need to build a website, and best of all, it requires absolutely zero experience to get started. I was able to get my website up and running in just about half an hour with its own customized fonts, colors, images, and even a video playing in the background of the homepage section. Now, you probably already know that Squarespace is the easiest place to get a website up and running, but it's so much more powerful than just a blog or landing page for your personal brand. In fact, we recently used Squarespace as the home for my podcast, GadgetCast, where we even set up a custom storefront selling exclusive GadgetCast hats and patches. This was my first time selling anything online, and the experience could not have been easier, with Squarespace handling all of the e-commerce for the site and making it easy to accept a wide range of payment options from Stripe, PayPal, and yes, even Apple Pay. Squarespace also connects up to G Suite, so you can get your own professional email tied directly to your domain name. And best of all, you can get a 14-day free trial and 10% off your first purchase by going to squarespace.com/GregsGadgets or clicking on the link in the description below. So make sure you check out Squarespace today for all your website, blog, portfolio, and online store needs. And thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Now let's go over those key differences, because that's going to be important when deciding between a MacBook Air and a MacBook Pro. First of all, while the Air and Pro have a near identical display, with now both of them supporting the P3 wide color gamut, the Pro's display can get a little bit brighter, maxing out at 500 nits of brightness compared to the Air's 400 nits. The Pro also comes with the touch bar, while the Air retains the function key row. This is more of a personal preference and no clear winner, but I do think a lot of people would actually prefer having a standard function key row, and this could be a pro for the Air despite the MacBook Pro costing more. Another change is the microphone system in the MacBook Pro. Apple calls it a studio quality microphone, and in my testing, the Pro's microphone does indeed produce better recording quality than the one found in the Air. Okay, this is a test of the MacBook Pro studio quality microphones. I'm also recording the video on the MacBook Pro webcam, so we can get an idea of how the webcam looks and how those studio quality microphones sound. So hopefully it's good. All right, this is a test of the MacBook Air recording on the inbuilt microphones, and also a test of the built-in webcam. The battery is also a little better on the Pro, rated for 20 hours of video playback compared to the Air's 18 hours of video playback. However, in my real-world testing of them, it's kind of hard to do concrete battery tests because both of these machines just last for days without needing to charge them. So I haven't really been able to do an official battery test to see the max battery life. Just know that compared to every other laptop out there, both of these laptops have amazing battery life. Now, these are differences, but they're little differences, and they probably shouldn't have you spending $300 more on the MacBook Pro. The only people who should be spending the extra cash are people who want maximum performance over a longer period of time, because unlike the fanless Air, the MacBook Pro does have an active cooling system with a fan. In my tests, again using that same 4K video editing benchmark, even though the Air and the Pro share the same M1 chip, the MacBook Pro was almost twice as fast in exporting a 4K video file. That's because the fan is able to make sure that the M1 chip is operating at peak performance and doesn't have to throttle down to cool the system as much as the Air does. Another plus of the Pro is even though it has a fan, you rarely, if at all, hear it, because it takes quite a bit of performance to get the fan to even turn on. And when it is on, you usually don't hear it anyway because it's not even really spinning that fast. So even though both machines are super capable, and even the Air is really great and has stunning performance for its slim and lightweight design, if you do want the best performance possible in these M1 Macs with a laptop form factor, and you have higher workloads that are sustained longer than 10 minutes, then the MacBook Pro is the better choice for you. Now let's not forget about the cheapest option out there, the Mac Mini. For all the praise I just lumped onto the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, and while I truly do think that the Air is the starting point for anyone looking to purchase these machines, there's no denying that the Mini is priced the best if you already have a keyboard, mouse, and an external display. If you don't have those accessories ready, well, then be prepared to spend a little bit more to get your setup ready to go. And if you need suggestions, I'll have some links down below. One of the main strengths of the Mini is that it has more port options than the laptops. Not only do you get the 2 Thunderbolt USB 4 ports found on the laptop, and a headphone jack, but you also get 2 USB-A ports, an HDMI port, and an Ethernet port. And because it has an HDMI port and a Thunderbolt port, right now, this is the only M1 Mac that is capable of connecting 2 external displays at once. Both the Air and the Pro are limited to 1 external display and their internal display. This makes the Mini ideal for people who don't need a mobile laptop, and for a lot of people right now, we're at home anyway, so it's tempting just to pick up the Mini because it's so much cheaper and you can spend so much more of your budget on memory upgrades, storage upgrades, or honestly, because it's a desktop and it does have those extra ports, it's easier to use external storage on these devices and just leave them plugged in, letting you get a lot more space at the fraction of internal storage upgrade costs. And even though the Mini is cheaper than the MacBook Air, in terms of performance, the Mac Mini is almost identical to that of the MacBook Pro, finishing the same 4K video export as the Pro in just seconds of each other. That means that the performance value on the Mini is the best out of all of these new M1 Macs. That's where the Mac Mini really excels for creators or professionals on a budget who already had desktop setups where they can easily slot in a Mac Mini. This is truly a $699 creative powerhouse, and I think it's one of the best creative values out there for video editors, music producers, photographers, developers, and so much more. Even when newer Macs are released next year, I don't think we will see anything matching the raw value of what you get with the Mac Mini. Overall, all of these new Macs are excellent choices, and I really don't think there's a wrong decision here. Each device has pros and cons, and while I think most customers will be happy with the overall value and portability of the MacBook Air, there may be some of you who want the maximum performance of the MacBook Pro, or some of you who don't need portability and will benefit from the low cost of a Mac Mini. Alright everyone, hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to leave me a like. If you want to see more from my channel, including future videos on these M1 Macs, make sure you're subscribed. Also be sure to let me know what Mac are you leaning towards and which one do you think is the best model. Don't forget to check out our sponsor for this video, Squarespace. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.